Ooh, comes with a cover. That's nice. Don't eat this. I wonder what's in here, a power cord. This is the Phil Jones Bass BG120 Bass Cub Pro amplifier. Why on earth would I use a bass amp for my violin? Typically when I'm amplifying an acoustic violin, I want the same thing that bassists want. A lot of clarity, a lot of headroom, and a pretty accurate reproduction of my sound. For years and years, I used the Phil Jones Cub amp, which was sort of designed for acoustic guitar. Let me go get that. There we go. You can see that this is not too different. This is the old school Cub guitar amplifier. This is the AG100. And this thing still is a very functional amplifier. For years and years and years, this was my go-to amp for playing things like weddings, function gigs, cocktail hour parties, small clubs, any venue where I needed to be louder than my acoustic instrument and therefore needed a pickup, but not so loud that I needed to play like rock and roll with drums. Cut to a few years later, I found what I thought to be the best replacement for this. This is the Bose S1 Pro. Actually, this is the Pro Plus. This has a bunch of features that make it very useful. You can see I've put my 7 Hugs a Day sticker on there. Only a few months ago, I got one of these and got pretty excited that maybe this could be my do-it-all amplifier. Something that would be still hi-fi enough to produce acoustic sounds, but maybe it could also be loud enough to compete with drums. Spoiler alert, not quite. This is not quite loud enough to compete with drums. Cut to a few weeks ago, I found myself at NERFA, the New England Regional Folk Alliance Conference in Asbury Park, New Jersey. No, I did not run into Bruce Springsteen, but I did run into the representatives of Phil Jones, and I was excited to say, hey, you guys make a really great amp. I've been playing your Phil Jones Cub for years and years and years, and only recently started to use something else. I didn't tell them that, but now you know. This is the upgraded, hotter, fresher, newer version of that 100-watt amp. Now it's got 120, and look at the EQ controls on here. Whoa. So much more stuff going on. Low bass, mid bass, low mid, high mid, treble. Yes, there's a headphone out. Yes, there's a determiner for passive or active. That's very useful for something like a violin with a piezo. There's a ground lift. There's a line out. This is the part that was the most exciting for me. There's a DI out. This thing called an earbox out. They demoed that for me. This was a little tiny monitor that you put right next to your ear on a stand. Seems useful, perhaps slightly impractical for a rock and roll show. But then there's this extension speaker cab out, which can go 8 to 16 ohms. Interesting. What's that we have here? It's another box. Perhaps you can guess where this is going. Ooh, that's a receipt telling me how much this did not cost me. Full disclaimer, these folks, after I tried this stuff out and tested it extensively at NERFA, agreed to just send me things to try. I'm gonna test them out right now and tell you what I think of them. Even though these were given to me free of charge, I'm gonna tell you exactly what I think. I keep it real here. Of course, I would like to have free stuff, but I have plenty of amps already. What I really care about is, can I get the best possible sound for both acoustic and electric violin, small enough and light enough to carry, but also loud enough to play in a full rock band? I think this might work. Look at that. This one already came with this. Oh. Extension cab, matching cabinet. Woohoo! Between the two of these, not a lot of weight. These are both very light. My hope is that this stacked together into one sort of megazord will be loud enough that I can play it in a rock band, but just the little one could become my go-to small gig amp. Here's the tests that I want to run. How does my violin sound straight into the amp? Nothing else. Then I want to try my typical gigging setup, violin into the Tonedexter, into this amp, and I want to shoot that out against the Bose. Those two are actively competing for which one's coming with me to the gig. After that, I want to test it out using this pedal. This is a tube preamp. This is the Kingsley Juggler. Then we're going to do the volume and power test with the extension cab versus the amp that I use mostly for playing shows with Billy Wylder. Lots to try out, but we're going to wait on testing most of this until I get back from my gig. Back in a few.
2 days later.
Okay, we're back. The last 2 days I've had 2 different gigs. I brought the Phil Jones Bose Cub Pro instead of the thing that I've been using otherwise. I've been using this, and I've been using it in conjunction with the Audio Sprockets Tonedexter. Tonedexter is really useful for either my acoustic violin or my Volta going into a small, pretty clean amp. It does a lot of shaping and sculpting and EQing and things that makes it sound less like a pickup and more like a mic. Right now that is bypassed, and I have my Volta plugged into the Tonedexter, bypassed, not currently in use, and that's going into this radial ABY switch. That I'm going to use to toggle between the Phil Jones and the Bose. This is not a particularly scientific test. My studio space is too small to really do this test justice. The only mics that I have on these right now are the overhead mics. This is a Neumann TLM-102, and that's a Peluso CE MC6. They're not in phase, they're just kind of thrown up quick and dirty. A note on the Bose. This thing has some really high-tech functionality to it. It has a Bluetooth app. I can control the settings via that app. I've got it on my iPad now. I'm gonna hit screen record. Another feature on there that it has is this tone match thing, where if I tell it there's an instrument plugged in, I can choose what kind of instrument. And it has all these choices, what kind of guitar down to the make and model. Right now I have it set on electric violin. I'm not going to change that. I'm gonna leave it set as electric violin. Maybe I'll toggle that tone match off and on just so you can hear. But the main controls here for that channel are just volume, treble, bass, reverb, and that tone match thing. We're getting into a question of what's right for you, assuming both of these devices sound good. And spoiler alert, they both sound pretty good. Which interface is going to be the one that gives me more control of my sound? Let's find out. I put all the EQ to flat. Let's make some adjustments. First things first, I'm going to turn the low bass all the way down. Hasn't really affected anything. Try to do this in a way that doesn't blow up the mic preamps. Okay, now let's cut the high bass a little bit as well. Turn that all the way down. Okay, so now we're getting into frequencies this instrument has. I'm going to turn that down a bit. Let's mess with the low mids. That makes a huge difference. I'll cut a little bit of low mids, high mids. That's a pretty significant difference. Maybe I'll just have that back a little bit. And finally, treble. That's nice. I'm going to boost the treble a little bit. That's a decent sound that I like. Right now I have this set on the passive pickup, and I have it set to a little over noon on the input level, and then the master level is also at about noon. Master level down, input level up. Let's turn the input level way down and the master way up. I can't hear a really obvious difference right from the jump. That's a good sign. Let's turn them both back to noon. Okay, that's just a first pass. Let's switch over to the Bose. that's pretty loud right away. I'm just going to turn that down. Where's my treble set? Treble's at noon. Bass is all the way down. If I turn the bass back to unity, I'm switching back and forth here. Here's the Phil Jones. There's the Bose. I really don't need any of this bass. I'm going to dump all of it. Or maybe put a little back. I don't know. Let's play with the bow. By the way, I'm playing about half my bow hairs right now. Gig season, right? Okay, let's give a little more treble to the bows. I'm going to crank the treble a little bit and see how that sounds. Ooh. Let's try and see if I can't get them a little closer to the same. Tearing down a little low mids here and bring back a little high mids. See if that makes a difference. Maybe more of the input level and less of the master. I don't know. I'm just tweaking around, see. I should turn this so it's actually facing me. Both are really good so far. I think the Phil Jones maybe is a little warmer. If I crank the treble, that's maximum treble on that Bose channel. Let me turn off the tone match now. Let me turn up the volume. The volume on this thing right now is, less than halfway. There's noon. Ew. I have turned the volume all the way up on that Bose, and listen what happens when I give it a strum. There's like a compression, or there's like a weird hiss or something that happens. Do you hear that? Like it's being very smart or something. Let me go back and set the treble all the way down. Ugh. My mic preamps just farted out. Ew. Okay, so something about the Bose when it is pushed to the limits gives this really sort of nasty that I don't like. Let me go back and take the volume back to a more reasonable level. Come to think of it, I'm hearing that sound throughout. This is with the tone match instrument filtering bypassed. Switch back to the Phil Jones. Let's bring it up a little bit in the level to match that. Okay, here's a good test. I'm on the gig, I don't have any preamp or anything, just the violin straight in. Phil Jones all the way, master volume up. Okay, I can get louder. This is with the input volume and the master volume dimed. My mic pre's are probably not happy about that. That's not bad. Take the treble down a little bit, maybe at this high volume. Switch back to the Bose. Can I cut some treble? No, that's treble at noon. I mean, I guess I could dial some back a little. And here is where I'm starting to notice a more obvious difference. At louder volumes, we start to hear the character of the amp more as it's working harder. I say the amp as if the Bose is an amp, but I'm using it like one, so you get the idea. The Bose sounds really good, but when pushed, it starts to be harsher, more strident in a way that maybe is less pleasant. And I think that the Phil Jones bass amp, the bass cub, is a little warmer and rounder at these high decibel levels. I say high decibel, but how high are we really talking about? That's coming up in the next section when I add in the extension cab. But before we do that, let's engage the Tonedexter. And we switch. Right away, the Tonedexter has dropped the volume considerably, at least in the perceived level, because it's filtering out a lot of the low-end resonances and frequencies. I'll bring the output level up a little bit on the Tonedexter, and maybe hit the boost. Yeah, there we go. Now I'm really hearing the Tonedexter's effect. It's a little more bitey. I think I'm coming out of the Phil Jones right now, so I'm going to take the treble back to unity. Okay, switch over to the Bose. Oh, right away, this is so much more harsh. If I go in and take the treble back a little bit, I'm going to dial it from noon to maybe 10 o'clock. Oh, I forgot to turn on the tone match instrument. Let's see if that makes a difference. And switch. I could keep tweaking these forever, but right now, both of them are okay. Let's push them louder and see how they handle the loud volume. A little bit louder right now on the Bose. Both of these I'm not yet hitting the ceiling, and both of them are like uncomfortably loud, so the mic preamps in this room are going, oh no! I have no idea if any of this will come out in the video. So far, so good. Both of them still have plenty of room left, and if I need more, the Tonedexter can get louder. Slight differences in tone. Let's hear, I think it's really more obvious around the low E flat note. That's the Phil Jones. That's the Bose. And here there's a clear favorite. I am strongly preferring the Phil Jones in this context. And this is the context I'm gigging with. I'm gonna bring one little amp and my little preamp, and that's it. The winner for the gigging test, I picked the Phil Jones over the Bose. But what about for electric violin sounds? Right now what I have plugged in is my Volta into this Kingsley Juggler. And this thing I'm super excited about and still getting to know. Let's try it and see if we can get this tube preamp plus the Phil Jones to feel like an overdriving or compressing tube amplifier. And again, the only recording I'm doing here is the same overhead vocal mics capturing the sound of the room. That's the Phil Jones. Now let me turn on the Juggler. I really like this combination so far. I want a little more volume. There we go. Oh yeah. Just a little bit of that tube distortion. Let's over-exaggerate it by turning on the drive channel. It's a little bit bright. Let me roll back the tone here. nice in the room. My acoustic guitar is singing. That's a nice sound as is. I'm just going to make sure that the clipping and distortion we're hearing is from the Juggler and not the front end of the Phil Jones. There's a little bit. You can see there's a clipping light indicator here. So I'm going to take the input level down. Now we're only hearing tube distortion, and this is not clipping. If I turn up the master volume, handles that exceptionally well. With the boost, sweet. Just out of curiosity, let's see what happens if I plug the Juggler into the effects return instead. With the Juggler bypassed, I'm not hitting the EQ section of this. Let's turn on the Juggler. I'm going to switch that output to be nice. And the drive, that's a little brighter than I'd need. A little more aggressive. And the EQ lift. So while that technically works, maybe if I take this a little, no, I mean, that's not a volume control, it's a dry wet. But all the way wet means no dry, it effectively is a volume control. I guess I could take that a little lower. And I'm hearing this sort of sparkly crystalline. I think that would be really good as a guitar platform. Like, I think I could plug an electric guitar into this acoustic bass amp and it still might sound good. I like the EQ that the Phil Jones adds. So I'm going to go back to plugging it in the front end. That EQ section is really powerful. That's nice. Next test, and I got to do this quick while I have no neighbors home. What about volume when I add the extension cabinet? This is the extension cabinet that came with. It's the same size as the BG120, and on the back there is a speak-on connector. At the time of unboxing, I did not own a speak-on connector, so a couple days ago I went out and bought this one at Guitar Center. What I'm going to do is put this underneath the Phil Jones and not plug it in at first, and see how loud it is before I plug that in. Like, I'll dime the volume and input and see if we're getting clipping, and then plug in the extension cap and see what that does for the volume. And for this, again, my mic pre's are probably going to get blown out, so watch the clipping light on the actual bass cub to see what's really going on. Currently in position. Here we go. Hit it with some drive and turn up the input gain on this. Oh, that's clipping. Loud already before I've used the extension speaker, but there's a little bit of clipping. So what happens when we plug in the extension speaker? Okay. My watch is saying it's too loud in here, use earplugs. Thank you, decibel alarm. I'm gonna turn the input gain and level down. Oh, my poor mic preamps. Wow. Okay, so no longer any clipping, at least according to the clipping indicator here. Holy crap, that's so much louder. I might just switch it to active too, which should make it a little less volume. That sounds huge. Again with the... Just everything in my studio is rattling. let's try it again. I don't need to do much of this to know that's loud enough for just about anything I could throw at it. One more test. I should really shoot this stack out against what my usual Billy Wylder rig is. Hold tight for a second. We're back, and I have plugged in this thing. This is what I use with Billy Wylder. This is a Fender solid state 112 combo. It's got the sort of Fender tone stack, and it has a spring reverb in here, which is rather lovely. It's not too heavy, but it is also considerably larger than the Phil Jones in terms of footprint, even with the extension combo. On the floor, I have plugged in my blue board. This pedal board is what I usually play in the band Billy Wylder. It has a whole bunch of pedals. All of them are blue. If you'd like to know more about that, leave a comment. Right now, we are going to switch over to the red, and this is the sound of that. Again, just in the room with the Empress Para EQ engaged. This is a background sound. Here's a medium volume. Here's a boosted sound. Nice. You're hearing a little bit of reverb from the Walrus Slow as well as the reverb on there. A couple more gain settings that I use regularly. Let me turn on the Timmy. Medium. And boosted. Nice. There's also a fuzz on here. This is the part fuzz sound. Here's what that sounds like. Let's compare those sounds to going into the Phil Jones. By the way, the secret sauce on this blue board is the Greer Amps Lightspeed, which is sort of an amp-like pedal, and that is serving the same function that the Kingsley Juggler was doing. It is pretending to be the tube amp preamp section. Now, I'm going to toggle this ABY switch and switch back and forth between the Fender and the Phil Jones. Let's see where we're at. Here we go. Oops, I'm muted on the Phil Jones. It's so much louder. Let me turn it down. Already I like the EQ of this more, and I haven't changed anything from before, but I think I could have some more mids and some more low mids and a little more treble. Maybe less low mids, a little more input level, a little more output, a little less output. Again, this is just a little more round and warm. I slightly prefer the Phil Jones, not too dissimilar now. Let's hit it with some gain from the Timmy. All right. Woo! I'm going to turn this so it's facing me more, just so I really am hearing it. So much more bottom end in this. I need to roll off even more. Woo! Okay. Nice. And with the boosted pizzicato tone, the sort of Great Blue Heron tones. It's like somebody took a blanket off of my sound, like it was muffled before and now it is much clearer. Let's do the fuzz test. That's too bright. Maybe I could roll off some. Very, very noticeably different. This high mids control is really part of the sound. Let me take that back to Unity. Give a little more low mids. I've cut all of the bass in both channels. A little less of the high mids. I'd have to turn the treble way down. This is with the treble all the way off. Okay. And now, so I can achieve the same blanketed effect by just turning all the treble off, but I don't really want that. I like the clarity and cleanness that this is giving me. Maybe more here. Wow. This is, again, a clear favorite for me for the Phil Jones. The Fender is fine, right? But it's never exactly what I want. It's always a compromise. The clarity here is much, much better. And I have rolled off all the low and high bass, but still have huge, huge bottom end. Last test in terms of real low-end thump is what happens when I use the octave down effect. It's so much better on the Phil Jones. This is huge. We use this for the song Flower to the Sun. That's the best that pedal has ever sounded, and maybe my favorite version of that tone I've ever gotten. Oh, PJB, you passed. You passed with flying colors. What have we learned? First and foremost, the Phil Jones bass BG120 without the extension cab is already my new favorite cocktail party gigging amp. It's small, it's loud, it's clean, it has a really flexible EQ, it has an input for an aux in if you want to play playback tracks on it, and yes, I did test a vocal mic into here as a PA. I'm not going to shoot that right now, but suffice it to say, it has the clarity I need for solo looping shows with or without the extension cab. And with the extension cab, it's louder than the gigging amp I use for a rock band with loud drums, and it fits in the car in a smaller and more portable way. This is leaps and bounds a huge victory. This is my new favorite amp. That's it for now. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please click the like button and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Thank you so much. It's free and it's very helpful. Thank you especially to my Patreon supporters, patreon.com/RobFlax. Okay, see you in the next one. Bye.